Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to really get into some fascinating source material and pull out the key insights for you.
Yes, the things that make you stop and think.
Exactly. And today we're diving into a text that's, well, it's resonated for centuries, excerpts from the Book of Ecclesiastes, the King James Version.
hmm And our goal here, our sort of mission for this deep dive, is to explore the thinking of this figure, the preacher or Koheleth.
Right.
We'll look at his thoughts on, what life's all about, the value of what we do, these repeating patterns in existence.
These are huge questions, timeless, really.
Absolutely. And his perspective, even though it's ancient, might offer you some real food for thought today.
Okay, let's jump in.
Yeah.
Because, wow, the preacher doesn't really hold back, does he?
Not at all.
Right at the beginning, he hits us with, "Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity."
Twice.
Yeah, that repetition tells you it's crucial. So this word vanity, he's not talking about checking yourself in the mirror too much, is he? What's the real meaning here?
Good question. No, it's not about personal vanity or pride. It's much deeper. It speaks to futility, emptiness.
Oh,
The idea that so many things we chase on earth, they just lack lasting substance,
Mhm.
real enduring value. He's questioning the ultimate profit of all our work under the sun.
under the sun. That phrase comes up a lot.
It does. It grounds his observations in this earthly realm. He's basically asking, what's the lasting benefit down here?
And he doesn't just state it. He gives examples right away in chapter 1.
Exactly, varied ones.
Like generations coming and going
Yeah.
endlessly.
hmm
Sun rising, setting, same thing every day.
The wind blowing south and north, circling back.
Rivers flowing to the sea, but the sea never fills up. It's this relentless repetition, he points out.
And using these natural cycles is really clever. It highlights how, against this backdrop of constant, unchanging motion, our individual lives and achievements can feel, temporary, almost insignificant.
Like things seem to change, but the fundamental patterns just keep going.
Precisely. And then he turns that lens on us, on human experience.
All right, he says the eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing.
Yeah, that feeling of always needing more input, more experiences.
But never quite getting totally satisfied. It feels very modern, actually. Always wanting the next thing.
It does resonate, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It points to that insatiable part of us. We seek stimulation, knowledge, novelty. But maybe true, deep contentment is always just out of reach.
Like chasing a horizon.
Kind of, yeah.
Then there's that killer line, "There is no new thing under the sun."
A big one.
He basically says, if you think something's new, it's probably been around before, you just don't remember it.
And that ties into his next point, that things get forgotten. Past events, future ones. Memory is short.
It's pretty sobering when you think about it like that, how fast things fade. News cycles, even major events.
Absolutely. It reinforces that sense of vanity. If nothing's truly new, and even big achievements get forgotten, well, what's the lasting impact?
So all this observation leads him to do his own investigation.
Yes. He tells us he was a king in Jerusalem, so he had resources, power.
Okay.
And he says he gave his heart to seek and search out by wisdom concerning all things that are done under heaven. He really committed to it.
The proper research project?
You could say that.
Mm.
But his conclusion, after looking at all the works that are done under the sun,
Let me guess.
all is vanity and vexation of spirit.
Vexation of spirit. That sounds more than just philosophical disagreement. It sounds like it caused him actual pain, distress.
I think that's right. The very pursuit of understanding, trying to find meaning in this cycle, it led him to frustration, disappointment.
It's like the knowledge itself becomes a burden.
He actually says that. In much wisdom is much grief. And he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow.
Ugh. That hits home for anyone who likes to dig deep into things. Sometimes knowing more makes you more aware of the problems, the sorrows.
Exactly. Information overload maybe, or just seeing the complexities and limitations more clearly.
Yeah. Sometimes ignorance feels like bliss. So, okay, his intellectual quest leads to sorrow. What next? Does he try a different approach?
He does. He pivots. He decides to test out pleasure, possessions, see if meaning lies there instead.
Right, chapter 2, he says, "I said in mine heart, go to now, I will prove thee with mirth."
Yeah, he tries out laughter, fun, but he pretty quickly calls it madness and asks, what doeth it? What's the point?
He also tries wine, but he's careful to say he's still guiding himself with wisdom. It wasn't just like uncontrolled partying.
Right, a deliberate experiment. And then he goes big on the material side.
Oh yeah, building houses, planting vineyards,
Gardens, orchards, pools of water,
getting tons of servants, massive herds and flocks.
piles of silver and gold, royal treasures, singers, everything you could imagine.
It basically had it all. The best of everything.
He says he didn't withhold anything his heart desired. And he even admits he found joy in the labor itself. That was his portion.
Okay, so for a moment, maybe he thought he'd found it. The satisfaction in doing and having.
Perhaps fleetingly. But then he looks back, he reflects on all of it.
Yeah.
All the work, all the possessions.
Oh, tell me.
Behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit, and there was no profit under the sun.
Back to square one. So neither deep thought nor massive wealth and pleasure brought lasting meaning.
That seems to be his conclusion. He tested these paths that many people assume do lead to fulfillment, and he found them wanting.
So where does that leave him?
Well, it leads him to compare wisdom and folly more directly.
Okay. Does he backtrack and say folly is better after all?
No, he's clear. Wisdom excelleth folly, as far as light excelleth darkness.
So wisdom is definitely better. It's like seeing where you're going instead of stumbling in the dark. Makes sense.
It does. He says the wise person has eyes in their head. They have foresight, understanding. The fool walketh in darkness.
But there's always a but with the preacher, isn't there?
There usually is. The but here is pretty significant. He realizes that despite wisdom's advantages,
Uh-oh.
one event happeneth to them all.
Death.
Death. And not just death, but being forgotten afterwards. The wise person, the fool, same fate, same oblivion in the long run.
Wow. So even the advantage of wisdom doesn't ultimately change the outcome or guarantee remembrance. That must have stung.
You think so? He put all that effort into gaining wisdom, only to realize it doesn't save him from the common fate. It leads him to feel, well, weary.
He says he hated life, and he hated his labor, too.
Yes, because he knew he'd have to leave everything he'd worked for to someone else. And who knows if that successor will be wise or foolish.
That's a really relatable frustration, isn't it? Working hard for something, building something up, and then having no control over what happens to it after you're gone.
It's a very human concern, that sense of impermanence and lack of ultimate control over the fruits of our labor.
So it sounds incredibly bleak. Is there any upside, any glimmer of hope or practical advice beyond it's all pointless?
Surprisingly, yes. Amidst all this, he does find something worthwhile. Not grand, ultimate meaning perhaps, but something.
What is it?
He says, "There's nothing better for a man than that he should eat and drink, and that he should make his soul enjoy good in his labor."
So find joy in the simple things, in the daily grind.
Exactly. Eating, drinking, finding satisfaction in the work itself. He sees these as gifts from God. It's a shift towards maybe pragmatic contentment.
Appreciating the present moment, the small joys, because the big picture is overwhelming or unknowable.
That seems to be the idea. It's not about the massive legacy, but about finding goodness in the here and now. That's something you, the listener, can probably connect with. Finding value in daily effort, even with uncertainty.
Yeah, that feels more achievable. Find satisfaction in the process, not just the outcome.
And this idea pops up again later, too. It's a recurring counterpoint to the vanity theme.
Okay, then we get to that really famous part in chapter 3. To everything there is a season.
And a time to every purpose under the heaven. Yes, that beautiful poetic passage.
A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up. It goes through all these opposites.
It perfectly illustrates that cyclical view of time and activity he keeps returning to. Everything has its appropriate moment, its place in the rhythm of life.
Does this suggest a kind of inevitability? Like our actions are just part of a predetermined pattern?
It certainly implies a larger order and rhythm, and maybe it does diminish this sense of unique individual impact. He immediately follows it by asking again, what profit had he that worketh?
Right. Back to the profit question. If it's all just cycles, what's the real gain?
And he adds another layer, that God has set the world or eternity in their heart. So we have this desire to understand the big picture. But we cannot find out the work that God maketh from the beginning to the end. We're limited. We sense there's more, but we can't fully grasp it.
That's a fascinating tension, this innate drive to understand meeting an ultimate limitation.
It is. And he doesn't just stick to philosophical stuff. He looks at the world around him, the social realities.
Yeah, he talks about oppression, seeing people suffer with no one to comfort them. That's pretty raw.
Very raw.
Yeah.
He also observes the envy that arises when someone does good work, the envy of a man from his neighbor.
So even doing well can bring negative consequences. It's not just about futility, but also about the difficult dynamics between people.
Exactly. The flaws in the system, the darker side of human interaction, it adds to that feeling of vexation.
But he does offer a small positive note there about companionship.
He does. It's quite striking. He contrasts the lonely person striving endlessly with the benefits of having someone else. Two are better than one.
Because they can help each other, keep each other warm, defend each other.
Right. It's a very practical bit of wisdom. Maybe grand meaning is elusive, but human connection.
Yeah.
That has real, tangible value.
That's a good point. He also touches on fame again, right? How a popular leader can be forgotten.
Yes, how fleeting public approval is. Even if someone is widely acclaimed, the next generation might not know or care about them. More impermanence.
It seems like no matter where he looks, nature, work, wisdom, pleasure, society, he finds these recurring themes of cycles, futility, and impermanence.
That's a very good summary of the first few chapters. He then moves into offering some more direct advice, particularly regarding God and authority.
Okay. What does he say there?
He advises caution and reverence when approaching God. Keep thy foot when thou goest to the house of God. Be ready to listen more than you speak.
Don't make rash promises or vows you can't keep.
Exactly. Sincerity and thoughtfulness are key. Don't just offer empty words or sacrifices. Fulfill your commitments.
And what about earthly rulers? He mentioned oppression earlier.
He acknowledges the reality of hierarchies and power imbalances. He observes oppression, but also notes there's always someone higher up the chain. It's sort of a pragmatic view of how power structures work.
And he comes back to money again, doesn't he?
He does. He that loveth silver shall not be satisfied with silver. The more you have, the more people there are to consume it, and often the more worry it brings.
So wealth doesn't equal peace of mind. Another recurring idea.
Consistently. Material gain just doesn't deliver lasting contentment in his view. It often just increases desire or anxiety.
It's quite a consistent message, even if it's a challenging one.
Very consistent. And then he brings it all back to that great equalizer we talked about earlier.
Death, chapter 9.
Right, he emphasizes again that the same fate awaits everyone. The righteous, the wicked, the clean, the unclean. It doesn't matter in the end.
That's where he has that line, a living dog is better than a dead lion.
Yeah. A stark way of saying that being alive, whatever the circumstances, holds value. Because the dead, they know not anything, their memory is forgotten, their emotions are gone.
So life itself, even in this potentially vain world, is preferable to the alternative.
That seems to be the implication. The window for experience, for action, for enjoyment is finite.
So given that finite window, what's his advice within life? Does he just say, give up?
No, quite the opposite in some ways, building on that idea of enjoying simple pleasures.
Eating, drinking.
Right, he adds, live joyfully with the wife whom thou lovest all the days of the life of thy vanity. Find joy in relationships.
And crucially, about work.
Whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might.
Ah, so engage fully, don't hold back.
Exactly. Since this life is all we have before the silence of the grave, pour your energy into what you're doing now.
That's a surprisingly proactive message, given the context.
It is. But again, there's a caveat.
Of course.
He immediately follows up by observing that success isn't guaranteed. The race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong.
Neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding, nor yet favor to men of skill. Basically, life isn't fair. Talent doesn't always win.
Precisely. Time and chance happen to them all.
There's an element of unpredictability, luck, or misfortune that we can't control. And he gives that story to illustrate it, right? The poor wise man.
Yes, the story of a small city saved from a powerful king by the wisdom of a poor, unnamed man.
But what happens to him?
Nobody remembered him. His wisdom saved them, but he was forgotten.
Wow. That powerfully illustrates the point about fleeting recognition, even for significant achievement.
It really does. It serves as a warning about expecting lasting fame or even just appreciation for your efforts.
Okay, so enjoy life, work hard, but don't expect fairness or lasting glory. It's realistic, I suppose.
You could call it pragmatic realism. He then continues with more observations, focusing a bit on wisdom and folly, especially in leadership.
What kinds of things?
Little things, like how one sinner destroyeth much good, or how a little bit of foolishness can ruin a reputation for wisdom. Dead flies spoiling ointment.
That's a great image. Small mistakes can have big impacts.
He contrasts the wise person's heart being at their right hand, place of skill strength, and the fool's at their left. He talks about the danger of folly being set in high places while the worthy are low.
Like seeing incompetent people promoted.
Exactly. An inversion of the natural order, which he sees as harmful. He also offers some practical proverbs about diligence, like sharpening an axe if it's dull, emphasizing that wisdom helps things succeed.
So it's a mix of these grand philosophical points and some quite down-to-earth observations and advice.
Very much so. And as he nears his conclusion, he offers some final thoughts.
What are those?
Advice like, cast thy bread upon the waters, for thou shalt find it after many days. Be generous, take risks, because you don't know what the future holds. Sow your seed diligently, morning and evening, because you don't know which will prosper.
A kind of hopeful persistence despite the uncertainty.
Perhaps. An encouragement to act despite not knowing the outcome. He acknowledges that light is sweet, it's good to be alive.
What?
But remember the days of darkness, for they will be many. He tells young people to rejoice in their youth, follow their hearts.
That sounds surprisingly positive.
But, he immediately adds, know thou, that for all these things God will bring thee into judgment.
Ah, there it is. Enjoy life, but remember accountability.
That tension again. Then he gives that famous, rather beautiful and melancholic description of old age and death, using allegory, the grinder ceasing, the windows darkening, the silver cord being loosed.
Leading back to the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it.
And right after that, powerful imagery.
Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher. All is vanity. He brings it right back.
He does. It's like the final underlining of his main theme after exploring everything.
But is that the absolute final word?
Not quite. The narrator, perhaps someone compiling his words, adds a little postscript. It praises the preacher for being wise, for teaching knowledge, for setting proverbs in order.
Okay.
And then comes the ultimate conclusion, the distillation of everything.
Which is?
Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man.
So after all the searching, all the vanity, it comes down to reverence for God and ethical living.
That's presented as the bedrock and the reason. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil.
Accountability, that theme again. Everything matters in the end, even if it seems fleeting now.
That seems to be the final takeaway. Meaning isn't found solely in earthly achievements or pleasures, which are subject to vanity, but in one's relationship with God and adherence to his ways, because there's an ultimate reckoning.
So, wrapping up our deep dive into Ecclesiastes, we've really journeyed with the preacher, haven't we?
We have. Through his intense questioning of work, wisdom, pleasure, his observations on life cycles, injustices.
And landing on this final call to fear God and keep the commandments.
Right. It can feel like a very pessimistic book at times. Definitely challenges our usual assumptions about success and meaning.
Yeah, vanity isn't exactly uplifting.
True. But maybe that challenge is its value. It forces you to look beyond the surface, beyond the temporary, and ask what really matters. What holds genuine, lasting worth?
That's a great way to put it. It clears away the clutter, perhaps, to focus on something deeper.
It invites that kind of reflection, I think.
So a final thought for you, our listener, to take away from this. Considering everything the preacher wrestled with, his conclusion about vanity, his final advice, what do you believe constitutes true, lasting value in this world he explored so unflinchingly?
Where do you find the profit that seemed to elude him for so long?
Yeah, something to think about long after this deep dive is over.